Hello, my name is Sheena Williams, and I am presenting to you today my technology plan that I hope you will agree with and approve for implementation into the English classes here at Charles Herbert Flowers High School. So, at the end of last school year, I asked my ninth graders, um, based on academics, what was the most difficult part of the school year for them? And a majority of them said assessments. And when I asked why, they said, well, number one, assessments are worth 40% of our grade. And number two, we feel so much pressure to do well because they're 40% of our grade. We don't want to do bad, and then the grade drops because of that. And so it got me to thinking, what alternatives can we use instead of the traditional format of assessment for students? And that's where, ladies and gentlemen, podcasts come into play. And so let's talk about the benefits of podcasts. So I read two different articles about teachers who had used podcasts effectively in their classrooms. The first one was titled Podcast Effects on the EFL Classroom, a Socially Relevant Intervention. And then the second one was For All the Fanatics of Drama Out There, This Is Your Book, an analysis of student podcast compositions for responding to literary text. And they both had these benefits of podcasts. Number one, they will increase motivation and the use of technology. We already know our students love to use technology, so why not integrate that into the assessment? Number two, it'll, like I said before, provide a more engaging learning alternative than just to the traditional assessments or essays. Number three, it increases communication skills and team building because students will be working together in groups to complete their podcast. And so they're going to have to learn how to delegate and give everyone a job and have everyone contribute, but also to effectively communicate with each other and learn to effectively communicate to the listeners to get the point across. And lastly, podcasts will tap into those higher level thinking skills where students will need to analyze and synthesize their material. But as they present it to their audience, they realize they'll become the experts, the teachers, because they're going to be explaining their character or the text or the skill to their listeners in a way that they will be able to understand, even if they haven't read the text. So overall, my goal is that students will complete or compose two podcasts per quarter after they have listened and learned from the teacher-made podcast. Scheninger, one of our textbook authors, says that leaders, we have to lead by example. And that's what I want the teachers in our school to do, is to set the bar with their examples. So going through the process of brainstorming, writing out, um, and completing their podcast examples and publishing them for students to hear. And they get familiar with the process as well, so that when students need troubleshooting help, teachers will feel comfortable with helping them because they've already gone through the process. Podcasts, of course, they're great because they're student driven. They appeal to many different learners, and then the final products can be shared. We have something that shows some sort of summative assessment rather than just a paper and pencil test or essay that we can show parents, other students, administration, that this is what our students have learned and this is what they have created. So our timeline will span over 5 weeks. As I said before, teachers will be creating their podcast first. And so that's one thing that we want to get rolling in the first week, is to make sure that we present the idea to the English department chair, and then we connect with T3, the technology team of the county, for training dates for teachers, but also so they can help provide us with training handouts and supplements for students as well. Week 2 is where we'll begin planning for curriculum implementation. So we as the teachers will start planning for our own podcast, but also looking ahead to see where we can fit in the podcast later on in the school year for the students to complete. Week 3 is when T3 will come in and train as teachers, and then teachers will create their own podcast. Week 4 is when teachers will continue to plan, meet for updates, come up with their rubrics. And then week 5 is when students are introduced to the podcast. And then after that, we'll start with the training and going through so that they are prepared when they get the assignment. So overall, podcasts provide us with many benefits that we want students to engage in. These are things that we have talked about throughout many, many years of education. Number one is working with others and then having that positive communication. I think another key is those text-based discussions that they'll have within their groups as they're coming up with their material for their podcast. But we are still fitting in parts of the writing process because students will have to think and brainstorm before they actually put their podcast in motion and start recording. And then lastly, it's still going to provide us with great assessment data. Overall, podcasts can give us so many different avenues that for our students. And I really, really hope that you will take into consideration all of the facts that have been presented to you today so that we can get started with this implementation very, very soon. Thank you.